Why do some people dislike Ho Chi Minh? Give up? Because he is annoying. Gotta know Vietnam for that one. Education and pop culture. Let's get into it. Concepts for the day. What was the role of schools in society? The impact on African Americans? How has the role of media evolved? What entertainment exists and what is its level of importance? And then who is F. Scott Fitzgerald? His take on the Roaring Twenties and why. And that man is the key vocabulary for the day. Today we'll start with education and school enrollments, and school enrollments are up in the 1920s, partially because industrial jobs are starting to look for a little bit more education with some of its workers, therefore you get more college-bound students. With that, you're going to receive, there are going to be more high school students, which are up 4 times from 1926 from 1915, 14, approximately 1 million to 4 million. So there's an increase in school enrollments. However, do keep in mind that education at this time has segregation that they have to deal with or is in effect. Plessy versus Ferguson segregated public facilities like schools, and so you get black and white schools. And with that comes the unequal distribution of resources and things of that nature, which is why Plessy versus Ferguson is overturned in the 1950s. But it took to the 1950s to get that overturned. What overturns it? We'll get to that in the future. What about newspapers and magazines? Both are up, and both are going to benefit from an increase in U.S. literacy rates among the citizens. Both continue the same sort of sensationalistic journalism that is present at the time, and we saw with yellow journalism in the Spanish-American War. But ultimately, newspapers are the most popular form of mass medium, and the great thing at the time is there are now national chains of newspapers. And why I say that's good is because that allowed the same news to spread further out to more people, not only across the country, but it made its way more into rural areas as well. Finally, the radio. The radio is the most powerful medium of the day. Radios are getting into the homes of people, and it's that idea of hearing something live, something that's going on right at the time, like a World Series. People love it. We see that in many ways today through Twitter is a great example of stuff that's happening right away. You get it on demand. That was the radio in the 1920s. Later on, we're going to hear the president really utilize the radio during the Great Depression with FDR. The 1920s and entertainment, and there is more leisure time for entertainment during this day and age than there has been in the past. With the increased wealth that many Americans are supposedly experiencing, there's going to be more opportunity to participate in leisure time and go on vacations and things of that nature. So 1920s board games, jewelry, getting into the latest fads, sports, going on excursions. These are things that people start to do very much more often than they had in the past. Sports is a big one. Baseball really takes off during this time. You get sports heroes really for the first time. Babe Ruth is one of them. The Negro Baseball League is taking off, and there are plenty of stars there. Satchel Paige is the one you see below. But with this increase in watching sports like boxing, which is huge with Gene Tunney and Jack Dempsey, eventually Joe Louis. But with this increase of sports, you get people not only watching sports, but a lot of people playing sports. College football is really big during the 1920s, and it's kind of the entrance into the modern day sports day and age, minus the business aspect of it. Events are also going to be really big. The excursion of King Tut was huge, made big time headlines. And then Charles Lindbergh is the first person to fly across the Atlantic on a solo mission. This made huge, huge news. And these type of events were just really popular and newsworthy during the time. We'll end with the arts of the 1920s, and the music of the day is jazz. We'll talk more about jazz in the Harlem Renaissance video, but that's the music of the day is jazz. But during this time, writing really comes into its own for the United States and American writers. You get Ernest Hemingway, who starts to criticize the glorification of war after his experiences in World War I. Sinclair Lewis is going to win a Nobel Peace Prize, and he criticizes discontent, dislike for American culture. And then finally, probably who becomes the best known author of the day and age is F. Scott Fitzgerald for his book, The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby criticizes the fast lifestyle of the 1920s and the material wealth, ultimately concluding that despite all the material goods people are accumulating, you're going to die alone. You can't take them with you. So that's what he criticizes, and really says the American dream is a myth. That's who F. Scott Fitzgerald is, often considered the first great American writer. That's it. We'll see you when you watch the next video.